Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of How to Be Your Own CEO. Be the CEO of your life. I'm with Nathalie Delaine, my co host. Hello, Nathalie.
Hi, Matilda. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Well, I'm doing well, not bad. Doing
Good.
still this is the Delta time of COVID.
Yes, it's a little bit of stressful times, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think today's topic is very interesting because we're going to talk about a point that everyone in their lives will face it sooner or later.
hmm
And it's better to face it sooner so you can I mean, you're going to give us some guidance around it. So we have to face it sooner so we can release ourselves with all the toxic and the negative narrative that we say to ourselves. So,
hmm
what is our topic, Nathalie?
Today we're going to talk about self-forgiveness
Yes.
and why it's important, what we can do, what are the benefits, and we'll just talk, and I have some questions for you. We'll just get into it and see what comes up. And like you said, this is something that everyone on earth will experience at some point or another. So I'm happy to shed some guidance.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit of.
Yeah. So let me start, with a simple question. Matilda, what does self-forgiveness mean to you?
Uh, I think just forgiving yourself, yourself if you haven't performed well in certain things, if you've done certain things in your opinion wrong, um, you're just forgiving yourself. I don't know if you're forgetting it, but maybe you should do that too. I don't know. But forgiving, you're just releasing from that judgmental point of view.
That's a really interesting point. And yes, everything you said is 100% spot on. And I do want to talk about the forgetting aspects of it too, right? There's always an element of that. But you're 100% correct, right? Self-forgiveness is forgiving yourself for any mistakes, real or imagined, right? Like sometimes we're in our heads about things. So any mistakes that happened or we thought about that we've committed, right? And mistakes, that you have your own definition of mistakes, right? We have our own values of what's right and wrong. So we're not going to get into that. But everyone knows, when you've done a mistake, like you just know it inside. So, for example, an example could be forgiving myself for not going to the doctor about something that's been bothering me for a year. Right. And we talked about that in my fibroids. It was one of
Yeah.
our episodes, right? Like it took me a year to go to the doctor. So how do I forgive myself for something that I was purposely ignoring,
Mhm.
right? And so it's it's looking at yourself in a deeper way, and it means accepting and moving on from things without being bad to yourself, right? And that's the hard part, and maybe that's where the forgetting can come into play.
Mhm.
But it's accepting what happened and moving on, and
Mhm.
hopefully learning from it too. Um, that's also key. And something that you and I have talked about in the past, and the topic we both love, is centered around self-love.
Mhm.
Self-forgiveness is required for self-love. Like it's not
Exactly.
even like a maybe, but if you really truly want to love yourself in all the good and all the bad and all the stuff in between, we get to forgive ourselves. And then the love can flow and we can truly accept ourselves for who we are. So I thought it was interesting to bring that up because it's something that we're both really passionate about.
Exactly. Actually,
Um,
I was just thinking, without there is no self-forgiveness if there is no self-love, and vice versa. It's like they're very
mhm,
connected. And once you come to a point that, this is it, this is who I am, and I'm the most beautiful gift that I have for myself in this
yes.
world.
Yeah.
And I'm the most amazing human that I think I am for me at that moment. I need a lot of improvement. Yes, every human being is, but I am enough, and it's beautiful and it's great, and I can do amazing things from that point, from that being, I think.
It's so true, right? And a lot of what comes with self-forgiveness and that path towards self-love, the one key ingredient is compassion.
Mm,
Compassion towards ourselves, right? So we make a mistake, we choose to forgive it, and in that process we have to be compassionate with ourselves. We end up getting closer to just loving ourselves.
mm,
Like it's a direct path there. So it's, I really want to nail that in because, right, becoming the CEO of your own life means that you love yourself, that you go for your dreams, that you're the boss of every area of your life, including this. So definitely an important part of it. Something I want to talk about too today is there's always talk about forgiving other people, and we're taught when we're younger, oh, you hit your little sister, go say sorry and ask for forgiveness, right? And like since we're young, we're always taught about forgiving other people, but it's not often talked about when we get to forgive ourselves.
yeah.
And that's energy that stays within us if we don't. Um, and for me in particular, like self-forgiveness isn't easy. And I imagine it's not easy for a lot of people. It brings up some triggers of my past. It brings up some trauma
Mm.
from my past, and so I tend to like ignore it, right? Kind of like, oh, I know that happens. Maybe I should say sorry, but I don't want to. And like you just ignore it, and I want to share with everyone listening that that's normal, right? It's normal to not. It's not easy to just forgive yourself for your past mistakes, and that if it does feel uncomfortable, that that's also normal too.
And
Um,
that's very good what you're saying, Natalie, because I want to jump in here and say, like, the cultures, different cultures and societies, they never talk about self-forgiveness that much.
mm-mm,
And it's very hard for people kind of to like, okay, I'm never programmed that way. Even family members, as you said, we don't we don't say, oh, self forgive yourself, try to forgive yourself, we don't say that. For us, it's kind of a little bit of a taboo subject in a way.
mhm.
And so it's very difficult for people to come to this point. I saw a lot of people that I was working with for the self-love, that this is an element that is stopping them because they've never learned from anywhere. Society never advertise it in a way,
Mhm.
and kind of we're not in tune with it. We like to criticize ourselves constantly, and that stops us the life that we want, actually.
Yes, 100%. And that's the whole point of our podcast, right? Like, if you were the CEO of our lives, we get to have the lives that we want. And so this is a huge part of it. And yes, culturally,
It's like you want to enjoy, for example, a moment, a dinner with someone that you haven't forgave. Like imagine you have a friend you're going to a dinner with, and you're very angry at her, and you haven't forgave her. What kind of a dinner you will have? Imagine you're having that every day with yourself. That
that
can
is a
be like
beautiful
that can be very nerve-wracking meeting, all the time.
and just
So
uncomfortable
yeah.
or just inauthentic, right? If I'm not really being nice and kind to you because I haven't forgiven you something, then I'm not really opening up and enjoying our time together.
And possibilities, the new possibilities together. So
Hmm.
I feel like it's a crucial element because your potentials in life can be limited if you don't forgive yourself for whatever mistakes you've done.
Hmm. Hmm.
You have to learn from your mistakes. There's that point for sure, but you have to forgive yourself to release that tension and that uncomfortable feeling being with yourself.
I love it. I love when you said release that tension, right? It gave me such a really good mental image, but that's exactly it, right? Like when you really truly forgive yourself for a mistake that you've done, why hold it? Why hold it in our bodies? Let's just release that tension, keep moving forward, learn from it, and then what's possible? Like you said, it's limited possibilities afterwards. So I love it. Yes, Matilda, let's release that tension for sure. um, but speaking of, right, like, so for me, it brings up trauma relating to my father's death. And in fact, our very first podcast was
Yeah.
almost a year ago. And it's relating to my father who passed away by suicide. He committed suicide. And so we talked about that, and it was such a great podcast. And that's 24 years ago. And I still sometimes have some of that self forgiveness. Like, should I have called him more? Should I have visited more? Should I have done this? Should I not? Did it, right? And so I go back and forth, and either I can hold on to that tension for another 24 years, or for the past 24 years, or I can choose to say that, sure, maybe I did make some mistakes, and what have I learned from them, like you said. And so it definitely brings up that trauma. And I'm curious for you, Matilda, like, are there any traumas or triggers that come up for you when you think of self-forgiveness?
Um, I think I think maybe being in relationship with wrong people, which
Mm.
I've done that gazillion times. Um, and for a period of time, I was angry, like, what? I knew better. I've had a better education about this, or why would I even consider these human beings to be in relationship with? Not because they're bad people or anything. It's just the wrong people for me, and it was it stopped me for maybe to get certain places at time
Mhm.
because I was involved with wrong people, and took a lot of energy that I could have spent on me, on my family, or the people that I really loved, or truly they were there for me, and I spent it on them. But I at the beginning I was there were a lot of anger towards it. But then I'm like, okay, I'm young, I'm a human being in this universe, and I'm learning. And
Yeah.
right now, I will never meet these people, maybe as a friend, yes, but never will consider these kind of people for partnership.
Mhm.
But I've learned. Yeah,
Mhm.
and maybe I wasted some time, my
No.
glorious time there, as far as my youth goes. But maybe I've learned something more profound than just wasting the time, and that's the value that I want to take. Otherwise, I can sit down and say, I could have done this, I could have been,
Mhm.
but I'm not where I'm supposed to be in my life because of those wrong decisions. But those wrong decisions, sometimes you need to make mistakes to become
Yes.
who you are, uh,
Yeah.
by just reading the books or not being in those relationship with these people. Even certain friendships can be toxic, and or even family members. Sometimes you are very nice and you're so giving to a family member that you're at one point you're like, okay, khalas, who is why am I doing this? I'm stopping from who I supposed to be because I'm giving services to this person. So I think I mean if you want to think about forgiveness about yourself, there's a lot of elements in your life that you could have done differently,
Mhm.
but then you have to come to that understanding that it's okay. It's okay to do mistakes. It's okay to be mean sometimes. It's okay to do wrong things even in this planet. Maybe that wasn't your education, but you had to
You have to go
smell,
through it.
yeah, you have to smell a lot of wrong flowers to find the flower that you want.
For sure. I've smelt a couple of not so fun flowers myself. So yes, but for sure, right? Like, you mentioned the word mistakes often, and we learn from mistakes, not always, and not at the same level, and everyone is different, but overall, we learn something from those kinds of experiences. So, yes, and in fact, this brings up a perfect transition to I have a quote that I love when I think about self forgiveness. It's one of my favorite quotes. I'm going to read it to you. It's from the author Shannon Yvette Tanner. She wrote a book called The Power of Wholeness. So, and this one quote, whenever I think of self forgiveness, is kind of where I go. And it says, Forgive yourself. You are not perfect. Show yourself grace. You are still learning. Show yourself patience. You are on a journey. I mean, just reading it now, right? Like, we know those things. You know that. I know that. But hearing it, it's kind of like, okay, I get to be a little bit nicer to myself. I get to show myself compassion. And then that road of forgiving things comes, and then the more self love, and then a beautiful path of a life ahead of us. But we are on a journey, right? Like we do make mistakes.
And it's interesting, this code, I mean, it's not directly relevant, but I think it's, I mean, it's interesting to understand that life is about this, your mistakes and your positive points and your negative points. Jalil Gibran said in his book in Prophets, which if listeners haven't read about it, or if you haven't read, I highly recommend. It's like a must read. He was a Lebanese writer, a fascinating one. So this one, the Prophet, one part he talks about happiness and sadness, and he talks about it's like it's interesting that now as a society we believe that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be beautiful, everything has to be great. But if you want to feel all the greatness, if you want to feel all the joy inside you, all the positive point inside you, you have to understand the sadness is sitting just next door, just next
Mm-hmm.
to you actually. When
Mm-hmm.
the sadness is sleeping, joy is up. When joy is sleeping, sadness is up.
Sadness up.
Meaning you are in this forgiveness part, we can bring that you're whole with your mistakes and your positive points and your greatness. If you don't
Yes.
understand your and acknowledge your mistakes and appreciate your mistakes, appreciation is very key here, then you're going to look at it as a negative point of view. But
Yeah.
we are not in this journey of everything positive, everything positive. All of it is combined together, and we have to look at it as a whole. And as your writer said, the writer that you like here, her name again? Sorry.
Her name is Shannon Yvette Tanner.
Shannon Yvette is saying it's a journey, and we cannot just judge ourselves at one particular moment because we
No.
don't know when the journey is over.
Yeah.
And we want to just be a whole human being at the end of our journey, just not this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just took off for, I don't know, for a road trip.
we're on a really, really long, fun, bumpy at times, smooth at times road trip. Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And I love what you shared too about, can you pronounce the name again? You say it so
Yes,
different.
Khalil Gibran.
Khalil Gibran. So in my head, the way I read that was very different than the way you said it. I imagine the way you say it is the correct way, but yes, I have read the Prophet and I love it, and such wisdom in that. It's
Yeah.
tiny book. So readers or viewers, check out this book. It's
And
amazing.
then the wisdom about the whole life, about every element,
Every
children,
element.
love, business. Very interesting book.
It's amazing. Um, but yeah, we're not perfect. In fact, I think if we were perfect, life would be kind of boring.
Exactly.
And so we're so not perfect. And to be reminded of that feels really nice. Right. And hopefully it eases some of your view, some of you guys listening today, it eases yourself in terms of when it's time to forgive yourself. Like, you're not perfect, and neither am I, and neither is Matilda. And that's okay. It's
Mm.
100% okay. Um, I'm thinking I want to share some of the tools that I like to do when it
Yeah.
comes time for self-forgiveness. One of my favorite things, it's kind of like a prayer. It's also a song. So it originates from Hawaii. I know I'm not going to say this correctly, but it's a Hawaiian prayer for forgiveness, and
Mhm.
it's called Ho'oponopono. Like, I can never say that wrong. So viewers, I apologize. I know I'm saying it wrong. But it's a simple song, and now it's just a prayer, and it becomes a mantra for me. And it's only 4 lines. And it basically goes like this: I'm sorry. please forgive me, thank you, I love you,
Oh, lovely.
right? And you just repeat that. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And the thing that I love about it is that you can say it to another person, right? That you're asking for, but you can also say it to yourself. Like you can tell ourselves we love ourselves. And yeah, we made a mistake and we did something, but still love yourself just the same way you still love someone that's wronged you, right? So that this is one of my favorite tools, and it's not only directly related to self-forgiveness. Sometimes I just use this when I'm having a bad day and I need to like calm down, right? And it's four little sentences, but so powerful. And the more you repeat them over and over and over, like you just start to feel yummy inside, which is one of my favorite
Oh, I
things.
love that.
Yeah,
You feel
it's
yummy inside. I
so
will use these lines, definitely.
it's not difficult, right? It's all words and sentences or phrases we've said in our past in our lives. So I encourage you guys to try it out. It's really and Google it. Like the Hawaiians have such beautiful songs and prayers about life, and this is just one of them. So check it out. Another, so there's a bunch of mantras and affirmations that I love, right? And I took some screenshots of some of my favorite, but they're good to repeat to yourselves, especially when you're trying to forgive yourself, right? And some of them are, I have grown as a person, or forgiveness is a gift that I give myself, right? And forgiveness is a gift. And it's something that you can do for yourself. And again, going back into the self love realm of everything, I accept that I'm human and I make mistakes. Right. And for those of you who are not familiar with mantras or affirmations, basically it's a word or a phrase that you repeat to yourself in the morning when you wake up, or when you're brushing your teeth, or you're having your morning coffee, like things that you repeat. And whenever you feel like it's right. For me, I usually do it after I meditate in the mornings. um, but these are simple phrases, words, things that you repeat to help. I have some other ones that I like. I accept this about myself, right? And obviously you know what the this is, but I accept this about myself. And you just, the more you say these things, the deeper you get into like the layers of an onion, because humans are very complex, right? So like the deeper we get into the core of our hearts, and we really start to believe and feel those words. Do you have any mantras that you like or use when it comes to
Um,
self-forgiveness?
I haven't. I don't. I haven't used mantras, but I would like to use it. I would like to start using it. And actually, at this moment, I just remember something right now. And you asked me this question, but at that moment, I wasn't thinking. What am I struggling with? One of the things that right now I'm struggling to forgive myself is I gain a lot of weight with this quarantine, like
Mm,
this, and I don't like my body, what I see. But at the same time, somehow I'm not taking the like immediate actions to fix this. I mean, I know
mhm,
what I have to do.
mhm.
That don't eat, you know, pasta, pastry, and stuff. Okay, you lose weight.
Cheese.
Yeah. It's simple, but somehow I'm not doing it, and I feel like because I'm angry at myself. I'm angry at myself to be in this position,
Mhm,
and it's kind of I'm punishing myself if I'm very honest with myself right now. And somehow I have to understand where this problem is, because all of us know how to lose weight, and this is not really my body. I never been this heavy, so what's going on? I don't know. And I'm in a struggle with myself. I'm in a war with myself, and
mhm.
need to forgive. So it's an element that I need to work on right now.
Yes. And right, and so some of your mantras, and thank you for sharing them. It's still it's intimate, and I appreciate you sharing that. And it's not easy, and I get it because COVID's hit many of us in many areas, especially our bodies. But maybe some of the mantras are, I forgive myself for not eating well. I forgive myself for not eating well, right? And then you sit with that for a little bit, and then you're able to like move forward afterwards. Or it could be, I desire health and wealth, or I desire, right? And like you focus on what you're feeding your body with. But it's important. And I'm glad that you shared that that's a struggle of yours, because I know some of the viewers are probably struggling with the same thing. And sure, maybe our bodies look different than they did before COVID. And how do we forgive ourselves so that we can start losing the weight? Because if we're still stuck in the, like you said,
Mm.
punishing yourself stage, right? You're going to repeat the cycle. I'm not losing weight. I'm really annoyed. I'm really frustrated. I'm just going to eat. And what
Exactly.
happens, right? Like you're going through the cycle. Whereas if you choose, you want to forgive yourself for letting yourself go a little bit, then you have like movement, possibility to change. So
True.
thank you for sharing. That's really nice. And
Yes.
and I can also personally relate. COVID's been tough on all of us. Um, Another thing that I like to do, and sometimes I do this in journal format, but I ask myself, like, am I giving enough? Am I doing enough? Right? For a situation, a person, a task. And I truly ask with the intention of listening to what comes up.
Mm.
Because when we don't feel like we're giving enough, or we are enough, then a lot of the shame and guilt come, and we don't forgive ourselves. But if you say, you know what, I'm studying for the bar to become a lawyer in the United States, and I got a really low score. So how do I forgive myself and move forward and take the test again? Yes, but one of the things I can do is say, like, I gave it enough. I was enough. I had all the studying. I was prepared. It just didn't work out that time, right? Like, so asking myself, and that's a different situation. There's millions of different situations, but getting to the core of that, like, did I truly do enough? Was I truly being enough? Can kind of help ease some of that forgiveness that we need.
Mhm.
Another way is kind of just listening to myself. How am I talking to myself? What am I telling myself? Am I being harsh on myself? Am I speaking words of self hate? Am I like, again, and sometimes I do this in journal format, but you can just think these things. Um, where does my heart need some compassion? Where can I show myself some self compassion? And usually those are the places we get to forgive, right? So let's say the example with your friend and going to the restaurant and you have not forgiven her. Like, why haven't you forgiven her? Like, what are the conversations you're having about her? And then you really get to the root of that. And then sometimes it's easier to say, oh, you know what? She hurt me in this way, and this was why. And then, oh, okay, now I can talk to her about it. And the forgiveness, right? So it's a process. Like all the things you and I talk about, none of them are hard. It's just different processes. Um,
Mhm.
so those are four ways that I like to practice self-forgiveness, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of ways. There are also, I kind of want to talk about not tools, but kind of reminders. Let's say reminders, right? Of like how the process usually works. And it usually starts with acceptance, right? Like accepting what happened. And I was mean to my friend, I shut her out. You accept that you did those things, that you chose to do that, right? Accepting is usually the first stage in a lot of different things in life. But once we truly accept what we've done, everything else becomes more clear. The second thing is expressing the feelings that come out of it. Are you feeling remorse? Are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling shameful? Like, what's coming up in terms of your feelings? Because forgiveness usually means that something, a mistake happened, and mistakes tend to be hard on people, on yourself and on other people.
Yeah.
So feelings arise, right? Like shame and guilt usually follow anytime there's a mistake. So really, really tapping into those feelings and listening. Um, repairing the damage, right? So do you get to apologize to somebody? Do you get to also apologize to yourself? Like, is there a reason to apologize? Like, really thinking about how to repair whatever the situation is, so that it can lead to a path forward. And then focusing on the renewal part of it. And we talked about this earlier. What did I learn from this? What lessons can I take away from this? What, how can I grow? Oh, okay, now I know that if I'm studying for this test, I can't book the test too long afterwards because my mind, right? Like whatever it is you learn. We always learn from, if we choose to be open, we learn what's going on from our mistakes. So that's key. Um, and you've mentioned it, I mentioned it earlier, and it's what makes our human experience even better.
True.
Yep. Um, so we talked a little bit about this too, and you shared about the self-forgiveness part in terms of your weight gain with COVID. Um, any other areas of your life that you can think of that require any kind of self-forgiveness?
I think, I mean, in every area, I think in your life, you need self-forgiveness. Another area that I think it will be important for me is having boundaries with my close people. I have boundaries with people that I'm not close to, but people who I'm very close to, that's maybe family members, I don't have a very good boundary. And
Mm,
I do a lot of things, and sometimes I'm like, oh, but I didn't want to do it, or I'm putting a lot of energy that maybe I'm just tired, I cannot. But I force myself to do it, and it's something that bothers me, For example, when I had COVID, I was with my mom, I was visiting my mom, and I just felt very guilty that because she's not with me all the time, now this is the opportunity. Okay, I'm sick. I mean, I passed the 10 days, but I was not okay. I wasn't feeling good.
mhm,
I would force myself to go and, okay, hang out with her or sit with her, eat with her, um, than rather than saying, you know what, my body really needs to heal at the moment
mhm,
and I need to rest. So I need to honor that,
mhm.
you know. So, and I think my COVID got longer because I didn't respect my body. My body was kind of showing me, don't
It
play.
it needed some time for
Yeah,
itself, boundary.
exactly. And I'm not very good at this. I have to learn to honor me more.
Mhm, mhm.
With Yeah, somehow it happens with close people, not with. I mean, I don't have that kind of a complication with other people in my life, but just very intimate people I have.
Sometimes it's harder to do things with our immediate family and loved
Mm,
ones than it is with strangers. 100%. I get that. And thank you. Thank you for sharing. What were you
yeah.
gonna say?
So yeah, I mean, every element,
Uh,
even work-wise, I don't
mhm,
know, friend-wise, your body, my body, workout. I mean, every area. I mean, if you look closely, I have done a lot of harm to myself in a way. Mistakes, maybe I've done mistakes, but then I shouldn't take it personally. I should just take it as okay, it happens, and this is how it worked out. I didn't know better, or
mhm,
maybe it's a situation I'm going through. I have to understand the source of it. Why am I okay to gain weight? I never liked to be in a heavy side. Why am I doing this to me?
mhm.
Why I'm not honoring my body? Why I'm not honoring my own boundaries with my family members? So, these are things that you have to go deeper and realize it. But then also you have to forgive yourself for not doing it because
Yes.
you need
Because
to
life
learn.
continues.
Yeah.
And life continues, right? Like we're still in COVID. It's now again, as you said, Delta variant time. We're starting to spend more time indoors again, less time outside doing activities and walking and running and jogging. So yes, we're still experiencing the hardships. So do we stay stuck in our negative talk about it all, or do we forgive ourselves and try again?
Yeah, next time I will let you know. It was when I was talking to you, I realized I have an issue with myself, I guess. That's why I'm not forgiving myself for gaining weight. So I'm gonna work on it to forgive myself.
Yay. Yay.
And
Good.
next time I will talk to you, I'll share with you how it goes. Maybe it will help
Perfect.
my losing weight process.
I would love to. That would be great. Maybe we should talk about that one time. But that's a good way to wrap things up, right? Like self-forgiveness is as hard as loving yourself. And that's why, like you said earlier, the two are so closely related, right? Like we're used to treating ourselves poorly. That comes easier, right? Our negative self-thoughts. And so self-forgiveness is a way of being compassionate and loving towards ourselves, which is harder. And which is, like you said, you haven't done it yet. And I'm still struggling after 24 years. And so I don't want anyone to feel discouraged. This is not an easy thing. It's just once you practice it, it will open your heart and the path and journey to your self-love, and then the path and journey to your entire life will be different. So I hope you got some good things out of this.
And yeah, I hope that you will reflect and you will put the time to reflect and to realize which areas in your life that you haven't forgave yourself.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to work on that so other, as you said, possibilities will open up
Yeah.
in your life. Very good.
And
So till next time, Natalie.
till next time. Yeah, it was nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank
Be
you.
well, stay safe.
Thanks. You too. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.